Messi the best ever?
I'm sorry, not for me.
No?
I just think that Maradona, had Maradona played in the same time as Messi, with the same freedom that Messi gets, I just don't see Messi being. Now listen, we're talking about two.
Yeah.
I mean, they're cut from the same cloth. But I think of when Maradona played.
You mean like protection?
Oh, Maradona had to jump 6 foot to get away from challenges every single time he stepped on the field. And he missed a lot of his career with injury because of that. You know, the famous Butcher of Bilbao broke his ankle.
Yeah.
So, you know, for me, Messi has been able to play in a time where those kind of things weren't allowed. I just think Maradona was just that little touch better than Messi. But
Ian, I know you've never been asked this before, but what do you think?
Well, I think we're all forgetting another chap, aren't we? Pelé. He won the World Cup 3 times, so you know, he's in the mix as well. I mean, it's very difficult to compare across generations because, as Stevie was saying, Maradona played in an era where there weren't as many yellow and red cards and people tried to kick him off the park, and all that wonderful control that he had was on terrible pitches a lot of the time. You could see that in that documentary about him. The surfaces weren't great. I mean, particularly the one at the Azteca, you know, in the 1986 final. So he had to put up with a lot of different things. They're all great players, aren't they? Yeah. And Messi is definitely part of that pantheon.
Yeah. Let's talk about the other end of the spectrum, shall we? France. You done player ratings for France as well?
I sure did.
Let's take a look. Who's getting the brunt? Who's getting the lowest mark? Oh, the midfield. Oh, and Dembélé. Goodness me.
Well, he almost got an incomplete because he did not make it to halftime, and neither did Giroud. Now, for Giroud, it's different in terms of what he did or was unable to do because France hadn't been all that good, and he depends from players around him putting service into the box. That wasn't happening. He was taken off. Of course, he gets a low mark. Dembélé, of course, he gets a low mark as well. Surprising to me that I had to give a low mark to a player who, up until this point, had been critical to their success, Antoine Griezmann. He gets a 3 because he disappeared. Quite frankly, he disappeared. When you were expecting him to be the outlet from France, he was not. Rabiot and Tchouaméni could not get a hold of the ball for 75 minutes, and so therefore they get 3s as well. The back line, it varies 4, 5, and 6s, some better than others. I thought that Varane gave everything that he could possibly give for France to the point to where his last challenge basically took him out of the game in tears because he could not physically go on any longer. And Mbappe, usually a hat trick in a final will secure a 10.
In a World Cup final now.
Absolutely. He gets an 8 for this very reason. Part as to why Argentina was able to dominate through the midfield in the manner in which they did was his unwillingness to help his team defensively, which created a mismatch and an unbalance that Argentina simply took advantage of. So for 75 minutes, I'm not just evaluating the last 30 minutes of the game. No. I have to go to the first 75 minutes. And what would his grade have been up until that point? Very, very low. After that, he scores a hat-trick, and so therefore, he jumps up to an 8.
Who disappointed you in his France team?
most of them.
Right.
I mean, it's not. I don't think you can pick one out.
Were they set up to fail then by Deschamps?
I don't think so. I honestly believe that this bug that they had to come into play here.
But where was the bug once they got those 2 goals?
Well,
it's like the bug had disappeared.
Well, Dan, you can be lying half asleep and I'll give you an injection of whatever, and then all of a sudden you're.
Well, I don't think anyone said. I don't see anyone having an injection.
You're the Energizer bunny. I mean, to be at your best, you have to be physically and mentally there.
Right.
And clearly, physically, they weren't there. And when you get that surge of energy from the goal that they got,
right,
that's what carried them through.
The natural adrenaline.
Correct.
Yes.
That's what carried them through. There was one thing that I thought Deschamps could have done, though. I thought that instead of, with what, 5 minutes to go or something, bringing on, was it Daci he brought on? Why wouldn't you bring on Mandanda?
Right.
When it's going to penalties? Because you look at Martinez in the Argentina goal, He's a monster, he's big, his big eyes are staring at you, he's kicking the ball away, he wants you to throw it at your nose, he's doing everything. And then you look at Lloris and it looks like a drowned rat standing in the goal.
He's never made a save in a penalty shootout.
Not only has he never made a save, I heard
It looks like a what?
a drowned rat.
So that's not good.
No, it's not good.
Okay.
He actually came out, I read that he came out and said that he wasn't very good at saving penalties.
Right.
So why are you leaving him in the goal for a penalty shootout? Get anybody in.
Right.
As opposed to somebody who's not very good at saving penalties. That's the one thing. Other than that, I thought that was a bit harsh on Deschamps.
Right.
Because he did make some changes that in the end almost won the cup for them.
Yeah.
I know it was a short space of time.
I know, but he had to make the changes because he didn't quite get it right to begin with.
Yeah, but you still got to, to make 2 changes in the first half. That's
right, but that's a referendum and the initial decision that you made.
Ali, half full or half empty. How about some players don't play very well? You can't do anything about the manager can't do anything about that.
Stevie, you know...
The manager can't do anything about that.
As a former manager, you know that if you're willing to make those changes in the 40th minute, it's because you were already thinking about this before the game even started.
No.
Okay.
No.
Ian, were you surprised how flat France were?
Yeah, very surprised. I just wondered, it's a funny thing that happens in tournaments. I think we saw it with Brazil in the 1998 final. I know there was all the business about Ronaldo in the background going on there, but I think sometimes teams can get to the final and they've expended all their emotional energy. The fact that Argentina were playing so well and so dynamically was the biggest reason, I think. But yeah, they were flat and they just couldn't find a way into the game. And I think, when Deschamps made those changes before half-time and you saw Giroud's furious reaction. I mean, it's humiliating, isn't it? You're picked for the World Cup final and you're hooked before half-time, him and Dembele. But that was a sign that Deschamps knew that they were being played off the park and had to do something or try to do something about it. As it happens, nothing really happened until around the 80th minute and Otamendi makes that foul. They get the penalty and France suddenly, the doors ajar for them and they come to life in the way that Stevie described. But yeah, it was a bit of a mystery. I don't think it was the bug, really. I mean, I suppose it was a bit of a factor. I just think they'd kind of got to the end of the tournament and didn't have a lot left.
What mark would you give the referee?
This was a very difficult final to referee because there were many instances in which he could have taken a different decision, a different direction, be a little bit more strict with how he was dealing with the cards, emotional game as it was. I'm going to say this guy was somewhere in the 7 or 8 category in terms of his performance. This wasn't easy to do. And one of the big things that he had to get right at the very beginning is, what do we do with the physicality and the messages, early messages that were being sent by Argentina to anybody for France that was about to touch the ball? They were right there and they were ready to tackle. So how do you handle that? Because you can't just throw people off the field left and right to begin the match. And so handling those moments early on and waiting for the game to settle down, or allowing the game to settle down and then allowing the teams to take over, I thought was something very positive from the referee's perspective.
L'Equipe, the main French newspaper, came out and gave him 2 out of 10.
Who won the game?
Well, yes, that's true.
Oh, right. Oh, yeah.
You think it's just sour grapes?
Oh, aye. I'm sorry. You can argue whether some of his decisions should have been yellow cards or not.
Right.
What you can't argue is he did exactly the same thing for both sides. Neither side can turn around and say that they were targeted, that the other team should have gotten more yellows and all that nonsense. And so you have to give them credit. Because without 11v11, we don't get this game. If we end up in extra time with 10v9 or whatever, it becomes a nonsense. And the fact that the referee let players make physical challenges added to the game. The one thing that we miss, in my opinion, the most of the time, in all the leagues around the world, is the physicality. The physicality, too much of it has been taken out. And fortunately, over the last 12, 18 months, it seems to have come sneaking back in, which is fantastic. And I think the final epitomised that you saw class, you saw ability, but you saw some desire and some physicality as well. every single thing you want when you're either watching it or whether you're playing it.
2 out of 10 harsh on the referee from L'Equipe's point of view, Ian?
Oh, I think absolutely ridiculous. Ridiculous. I thought he was outstanding. He was brave. He made the right decisions on all the penalty decisions. And what a fantastic piece of refereeing near the end of the game when Thuram tries to buy a penalty by hooking his leg around the foot of one of the Argentinian defenders, goes down and he books him for diving. Thuram got up. He didn't complain about it, did he? He knew what he'd been trying to do. I thought that was absolutely fantastic. That was so easy to get wrong. Marciniak, a former player, by the way, was that referee, and I'd have given him 9 out of 10.
Well, thank you very much for watching ESPN on YouTube. For more sports highlights and analysis, be sure to download the ESPN app. And for live streaming, premium content, and let's not forget as well, ESPN FC 7 days a week. Subscribe to ESPN+.